10,000 years ago, somebody built a wall around a pile of seeds. That's it. That's the whole invention. A clay jar. Dry, sealed, full of wheat. It doesn't sound like the beginning of anything. But that jar changed what kind of animals live in your house. Because for the first time in the history of life on Earth, food stopped moving. In nature, food runs. Food hides. Food fights back. This food just sat there, in one place, all year. And something noticed. Not a human. Something much smaller. Something with a long pink tail. The house mouse didn't exist yet, not the way you know it. Mus musculus was a wild rodent in the grasslands of the Near East. Then it found the jar, and it never left. Within a few centuries, mice were living inside human settlements permanently, breeding faster, getting bolder, eating our stored future. The first farmers had invented the granary, and accidentally invented the pest. Now hold that thought. Because a village full of mice is not a problem. A village full of mice is an opportunity. And out in the dry hills, something was already hunting them. Meet Felis sylvestris libica, the Near Eastern wildcat. Sand-colored, faint stripes, roughly the size of the cat on your couch. Actually, almost exactly the size of the cat on your couch. Remember that. It matters later. This animal was not friendly. It was a solitary ambush predator with a hair-trigger fear response. It did not live in groups. It did not seek company. It hunted alone, at night, and avoided everything larger than itself, including us. But mice smell like opportunity. And so some of these cats started drifting toward the villages, not into human hands, toward the edges, the grain heaps, the rubbish, the rodent traffic. And here's the part that matters. Which cats could actually do this? Only the ones that were slightly less terrified than the others. The nervous ones stayed in the hills and stayed hungry. The calm ones ate every night, next to the loudest animals on the planet. And calm cats had kittens that were slightly calmer. Nobody chose them. Nobody trained them. Nobody caught anything. This is called the commensal pathway to domestication. The animal walks in on its own. The human just fails to throw a rock. Dogs did the same thing with our garbage. The cat did it with our mice. But this is where the two stories split, and where the cat starts to look genuinely strange. Here's the version you probably heard. Ancient Egypt. Priests. Golden statues. The Egyptians tamed the cat. They loved it so much they made it a god. It's a beautiful story. It's also about 4,000 years too late. In 2004, on the island of Cyprus, archaeologists opened a grave. Inside, a human skeleton, shell ornaments, polished stone tools, and 40 centimeters away, in its own small pit, a cat. 8 months old, buried deliberately, facing the same direction as the human. The grave is around 9,500 years old. And here's the detail that breaks everything. Cyprus has no native cats. It's an island. Cats cannot swim there. Which means somebody put a cat in a boat. On purpose. Thousands of years before the pyramids. Before writing. Before the wheel. Somebody looked at a small wild predator and thought, that's coming with me. But, and this is the important part, that does not mean they tamed it. In 2007, a geneticist named Carlos Driscoll sequenced DNA from nearly 1,000 cats. House cats, wild cats, strays, from 4 continents. He was looking for the ancestor. He found it in the Near East. Felis sylvestris libica. All of them. Every cat alive. Every breed. Every stray behind every restaurant. 1 wild cat, from 1 region, 5 maternal lines. So far, this sounds exactly like the wolf story. It isn't. In 2014, researchers sequenced the full domestic cat genome, then compared it to its wild ancestor. When you do that with dogs, you find enormous change. Different skull shapes, different digestion, different brains. Dogs even evolved extra copies of a gene called AME2B, so they could digest the starch in human food. The dog rebuilt its own metabolism to eat what we eat. The cat did not change a single thing about its diet. It cannot even taste sugar. The gene is broken. It is still an obligate carnivore. Still needs meat. Still needs taurine. It never adapted to our food. It just ate the animals that were eating our food. And when they counted the genes that actually changed, the ones separating a house cat from a wild cat, the number was around 13. 13 genes. Mostly fear, memory, and reward seeking. That is the entire difference between wild and tame. Remember the silver fox experiment? Breed for tameness, and the body falls apart into floppy ears and spots. Domestication syndrome. It happened to dogs, pigs, cows, horses. It barely happened to the cat. House cats are only a few percent smaller than wild cats. The ears stayed up. The tail stayed straight. The skull stayed the same shape. Put a house cat next to its 10,000-year-old ancestor, and most people could not tell you which is which. Now try that with a wolf and a pug. And it goes further. Domestic cats and wild cats still interbreed freely. Fertile offspring. It is such a non-barrier that it is a conservation crisis. The Scottish wildcat is being erased, not by hunting, but by house cats. The species never actually separated, which raises an uncomfortable question. If the body did not change, and the diet did not change, and it still interbreeds with the wild version, in what sense is this animal domesticated at all? Which brings us, finally, to Egypt. Because Egypt did not domesticate the cat. Egypt did something else. Egypt made it official. By around 1000 BC, the cat was no longer just a rodent solution. It was Batet, a goddess with a cat's head, protector of the home, of women, of children. And the worship was industrial. At the temple city of Bubastis, cats were bred in enormous numbers. Bred, killed young, mummified, and sold to pilgrims as offerings. Archaeologists have pulled hundreds of thousands of cat mummies out of Egypt. In the 19th century, one shipment weighed 19 tons. In the 19th century, one shipment weighed 19 tons. 19 tons of sacred cats, spread on farmland. Egypt also made exporting cats illegal. There were officials whose job was to travel abroad and buy the cats back. The historian Diodorus records a Roman in Alexandria who killed a cat. Accidentally, he claimed. A crowd found him. The pharaoh could not save him. Over a cat. And through all of this, the temples, the laws, the mummies. The cat's job description did not change once. It killed things that ate grain, exactly as before. Then it got on the boats. In 2017, a team led by Claudio Ottoni sequenced DNA from ancient cats across 9,000 years of remains. They found two waves. First, the Near Eastern farming wave, moving with agriculture. Then, much later, an Egyptian lineage, moving by sea. Cat DNA appears in Roman ports, in Baltic trading towns. In a Viking harbor, cats traveled north with the longships. Every ship carried grain. Every ship carried rats. So every ship carried a cat. The cat colonized the planet as cargo insurance. And here is the timing detail nobody expects. The blotched tabby coat, the swirled marking on millions of cats, does not show up in the DNA record until the Middle Ages. Humans only started selecting cats for how they look about 700 years ago. 9,000 years of living together, and we never touched the design. So if the cat gave us almost nothing, no changed body, no changed diet, no job it wasn't already doing, how is it in your bed right now? This is the part one actually want to tell you about. Because the cat did evolve one thing for us. Not a face, not a muscle, a sound. Adult wildcats are almost silent with each other. They hiss, they growl, they scream when fighting. Kittens meow at their mother, and then they stop. Adult cats do not meow at other adult cats. Practically the only thing a domestic cat meows at is a human. The meow is not cat language. It is an interface. A researcher named Nicholas Nicastro recorded both African wildcat calls and domestic cat meows. Then he played them to people. The domestic meows were shorter, higher, and rated far more pleasant. The wild ones were rated harsh, unpleasant, wrong. The cat's voice was tuned by us, without us noticing. And then there is the purr. In 2009, Karen McComb studied cats waking their owners for food. She found something buried inside the purr. A high-frequency cry, around 380 hertz. That is the frequency range of a human infant crying. The cat embeds an infant's distress signal inside a comfort sound. Humans rate that purr as urgent and impossible to ignore. Because we are built to hear exactly that. You are not being asked. You are being triggered. There are around 600 million cats on Earth. In dozens of countries, they now outnumber dogs. And unlike almost any other domestic animal, a house cat dropped into the wild does not die. It hunts. It breeds. It thrives. Feral cats are among the most effective predators on the planet because they were never actually disarmed. So here's where this leaves us. Every other animal we brought inside, we rebuilt. We shortened its legs, softened its skull, broke its instincts. We took the wolf apart and reassembled it 300 different ways. The cat walked into the granary 10,000 years ago and walked out into your apartment essentially unchanged. It kept its body. It kept its teeth. It kept its solitude. It gave up exactly one thing. It learned to talk to us. And it only ever says one thing, in a voice built for our ears alone. You never domesticated the cat. You just became the part of the deal that changed. Tonight it will sit on something warm that belongs to you and make a sound no cat has ever made to another cat. And you will get up. Every single time.